回国自首是我个人
Returning to China to surrender is my personal voluntary choice and has nothing to do with anyone else.
任何人没有关系，我也不希望
I also do not want any individual or organization, including Sweden, to intervene or interfere with my return to China.
介入或者干涉我回国的事情。
This is footage broadcast on Chinese state television about 10 years ago. Ordinary overseas Chinese never imagined that such a thing would happen to them 10 years later. The CCP is accelerating the closure of the country's gate. If you want to flee, do it as soon as possible, because only 1 month is left. In this episode, we observe how the CCP has laid a trap in China, beginning to ensnare overseas Chinese returning home to visit relatives. The gates will be closed, effectively locking any Chinese people from leaving the country. In early August of this year, such news circulated in the Chinese community on the X platform. It might be the first time for many Chinese to see such a document. The Certificate of Restoration of Chinese Citizenship in the People's Republic of China. This netizen who was forced to restore his citizenship said he is of Japanese-Chinese descent and returned to China with his family on July 2nd. In late July, he and his family went to the airport to fly back to Japan. However, 5 minutes before boarding, they were intercepted. The whole family was detained in a small dark room for 7 days, not allowed to sleep or rest. His family members were interrogated separately. He was also told that if he didn't cooperate, his 3 children might become orphans and be sent to a welfare institution in a remote area. The Japanese-Chinese man wrote, "Considering the children, I personally stated in front of the camera that I voluntarily renounced my Japanese citizenship and restored my Chinese citizenship in order to cut off foreign consular protection. All my bank accounts, Alipay, WeChat, and other services are blocked from logging into Ctrip, Fliggy, and other websites. I received a notification that I needed to go to the local police station to register. When I went to the police station to register, I was told that I would be prohibited from leaving China until 2036. My family of 5 has been living in Japan for 13 years, running a business there for over 20 years with assets exceeding 10 million and employing over 40 people. Everything has come to an instant halt. I am too sad for tears." On July 31st, he received this document, the Certificate of Restoration of Chinese Citizenship, number 1038. He wrote, "I had seen news about Gui Minhai's restoration of citizenship before, but I never imagined it would happen now." Gui Minhai is a man who appeared at the beginning of our program. Gui Minhai previously ran the Causeway Bay bookstore in Hong Kong, which was known for selling books about the CCP leaders and political scandals. These books were banned in mainland China but were popular with mainland tourists. On October 17, 2015, Gui disappeared in Thailand. He was one of 5 Hong Kong publishers and booksellers who disappeared in late 2015, all of whom had published books critical of the Beijing government. In 2016, Gui Minhai appeared on Chinese state television and confessed to a hit-and-run case he was involved in years earlier. This incident caused a sensation at the time, and the Swedish side launched a rescue operation. In January 2018, while traveling from Shanghai to Beijing with 2 Swedish diplomats for medical treatment, Gui was again taken away by plainclothes police. In February 2018, in front of a TV camera at the Ningbo Detention Center in Zhejiang Province, Gui Minhai stated that he was a pawn of the Swedish government. I know that the Swedish side has been hyping things up a lot recently. I have written a letter to the Swedish ambassador to China, Lin Dayan, mentioning that I do not want the Swedish side to continue hyping my case. Looking back now, I realize that I may have actually become a pawn of the Swedes. That is to say, under the constant instigation, I broke the law again. My once wonderful life has been destroyed, so in this sense, I no longer trust the Swedes. Of course, audiences noticed that at the end of the video, 2 imposing Chinese police officers were standing next to Gui. In February 2020, Gui Minhai was sentenced to 10 years in prison in a trial for illegally providing state intelligence to foreign organizations. He remains detained in an unknown location and has been deprived of contact with his family and Swedish consular officials. The Chinese Communist Party claims that he was denied consular access because Gui applied to restore his Chinese citizenship. Many overseas Chinese, though living in the free world, psychologically draw a red line for themselves. avoiding topics related to the CCP and refraining from saying anything negative about the CCP on social media. Many business people also deliberately avoid advertising in media outlets that criticize the CCP. They believe this will prevent the CCP from causing them trouble. In fact, the pace of these overseas Chinese concessions can never keep up with the CCP's expanding ambition. Because the country is rapidly becoming impoverished, if you own a business or become wealthy for any other reason, then in the eyes of the CCP, you will be like a fat sheep. Faced with a precipitous economic downturn, all the CCP's efforts in the coming years will focus on resolving its debt crisis. One way is to cast a wide net to plunder wealth from overseas Chinese. Therefore, for overseas Chinese, returning to China for tourism or to visit relatives is a risky endeavor. The CCP's wide net is not only targeting overseas Chinese. On August 3rd of this year, the New York Times investigated the dynamic management platform for foreigners in Zhangjiakou City, Hebei Province, China. The investigation found that the platform closely resembled the patent-titled Foreigner Information Interface filed by Beijing Changyuan Power Technology Company Limited. The system login records also showed usernames from 8 police stations in Zhangjiakou and 3 police stations in other cities. The New York Times verified the information of 6 other individuals in the database besides the initial discoverer, confirming the authenticity of their passports, photos, phone numbers, and family details. This report is based on a post in mid-May from ensnare, a blog by a former journalist who focuses on the CCP's cybersecurity issues. The report corroborates the blog's descriptions. This includes the fact that the file of one of the former Beijing correspondents even recorded the names of his children. The platform contains nearly 12,000 records, including over 700 foreign nationals residing in Zhangjiakou, over 300 foreign journalists, as well as people from Hong Kong and Taiwan, key personnel, and fugitives. Some foreign journalists had never been to Zhangjiakou, yet their files were still created in advance. The database not only records passports, addresses, and occupations, but also integrates information from cameras, facial recognition, flights, train seats, medical care, refueling, spending, and travel companions, categorizing it by the Five Eyes Alliance, key countries, religious beliefs, and personal types. On May 19th, ensnare disclosed the secret Chinese surveillance platform called the Overseas Personnel Dynamic Management Platform. Investigators at the time suggested this might be a demonstration system, while the New York Times believes it's not a demonstration but a system operating within the Chinese Communist Party's police force. The blog post has confirmed that some of the data comes from the real world, including passport information, phone numbers, visa information, and travel records. The system not only records foreigners' accommodation, work, and study information, but also uses facial recognition cameras to track their movements in the city in real time. Data such as train carriage and seat selection are also included in long-term analysis. The platform creates a quick profile for each individual and labels them with so-called risk factors. The system also integrates medical records, addresses, work information, refueling records, daily activity patterns, and even social relationships. One of its functions is relationship graph analysis, which automatically analyzes connections between people based on the frequency of co-occurrences in surveillance footage. In addition, the system also has databases for key personnel, fugitives, foreign journalists, and foreign students. When relevant personnel enter a location, the platform sends alerts to local administrative and security departments. The system's data sources include not only police surveillance networks but also camera data from commercial systems such as ski resort cable cars. A foreign journalist was instantly identified and tagged by a system while skiing. Zhangjiakou, China is a popular winter sports destination. This foreign journalist was detected skiing in Zhangjiakou, and the data was transmitted to the police in Baoding. This means that data obtained by cameras in a private company, the ski lift access system, is transmitted to the Chinese police. The spreadsheet is titled Five Eyes Nationalities in Baoding City. Baoding City is a 4-hour drive from Zhangjiakou City. According to the spreadsheet, the reasons why people of Five Eyes nationalities temporarily reside in Baoding City are work 27%, family reunification 17%, and private affairs 2%. The whistleblower claims that based on the interface and data, the system was tested around 2023, with some underlying data dating back to 2021. If you have been to China, your whereabouts may already be meticulously recorded by the CCP's police. The party is ruthless towards overseas Chinese, and even more so towards its citizens already confined within China. Do you have a visa for Japan? Are you planning to travel to Japan? The visa hasn't been processed yet. My passport expired, so I went to renew it. There have been a lot of incidents in Japan lately. You should be careful when you go out. It's still early for the trip. I haven't planned it yet. In late March of this year, this man living in Shanghai, when renewing his passport, casually wrote "intention to travel to Japan" in the reason section. Shanghai police actually called the man, saying that several serious incidents had recently occurred in Japan, urging him to be careful, and repeatedly asked him when he would go to Japan at the earliest. The police stated that the Exit Entry Administration Bureau had recently issued a list, and they were required to call these citizens one by one to remind them. Remind is a polite word. The real meaning is to prevent them from going to Japan. The party is accelerating its actions because it no longer believes that police calls can truly prevent citizens from traveling abroad. On July 31st of this year, the State Council of China announced the regulations of the State Council on Exit and Entry Management, which will take effect on September 15th. The regulations state that those intending to travel to the highest risk countries or regions should be dissuaded from going when necessary. Article 4 of the new regulation stipulates that if a Chinese citizen engages in illegal or criminal activities abroad, endangering national security and interests, the relevant departments of the State Council may prohibit them from leaving the country for 6 months to 3 years from the date of their return. Article 6 stipulates that in principle, the facts, reasons, basis, and remedies for the restriction on exit should be notified in writing to the person restricted from leaving the country. However, in cases that may affect national security or criminal investigations, the person may not be notified. The document also stipulates that Chinese citizens who violate export controls, technology import and export management, or may endanger national industrial or technological security may be prohibited from leaving the country. Intermediary agencies and personnel providing exit and entry consultation and document processing services will also be subject to registration management. Previously, the CCP's focus was on personnel within the government system. For example, even low-ranking officials within the local government system needed to fill out an application form to leave the country. When these officials apply for ordinary passports, the web system prompts them to bring a letter of consent from their employer. After the new regulations came into effect on July 31st, it became even more difficult for government employees to travel abroad. This is an interpretation of the new exit entry management regulations by an immigration agent. He had a large beard on, clearly to avoid being recognized. Before yesterday's State Council decree, mainland Chinese civil servants could apply for Hong Kong residency. However, starting September 15th of this year, any agency that provides immigration services to mainland civil servants or military personnel is committing an illegal act. The latest State Council decree explicitly requires that all agencies or individuals engaged in immigration services, like myself, must register with the Public Security Department. If an immigration agency has a criminal record, they are not allowed to provide immigration services. Immigration agencies that accept business from public officials or military personnel and help them obtain visas or permanent residency overseas are committing an illegal act. The consequences range from fines to imprisonment. The new regulations state that for citizens who may endanger national industrial or technological security, the Ministry of Commerce and other departments under the State Council can directly decide to prohibit their exit from the country. And this power has been delegated to county-level entry-exit administration agencies. This actually means that the CCP's focus is not only limited to government or state-owned enterprise personnel. The scope has expanded significantly to include private entrepreneurs, tech companies, dissidents, and more. This is what's truly alarming. On the Chinese Q&A website Jihu, many netizens believe that the new regulations are creating an atmosphere of fear for accountability among government departments, relevant company leaders, police stations, intermediaries, and airports, which will lead to stricter treatment of Chinese citizens seeking to leave the country. A Chinese netizen commented, "The number of visa-free countries is increasing year by year. The government is getting anxious. With so many visa-free countries allowing Chinese people to travel as freely as those in developed countries, the relevant domestic departments must be worried. How can we expand domestic demand? How can we keep letting Chinese people be exploited by those tourist attractions with their unscrupulous practices? Wouldn't that reduce tax revenue and income? Therefore, they are increasingly restricting people from traveling abroad." Some netizens also believe that the party sees too much foreign exchange being wasted by Chinese people going abroad for work, tourism, and study. The visit of high-ranking CCP officials to North Korea in mid-July was likely to learn from Kim Jong-un how to control the people, otherwise they would flee abroad. This netizen with 5 days left before his trip abroad found his passport covered in doodles by his 5-year-old daughter. Actually, he doesn't need to worry too much. If the party allows you to leave the country, you can. If they don't want you to leave, no matter how perfect your documents and procedures are, you can't. This is similar to a question on Jihu. What are some famous quotes that have shocked you? One answer received 5,115 upvotes. The answer reads, "A lawyer once asked a prosecutor, which is greater, the party or the law?" The prosecutor's answer was brilliant. The prosecutor said, "The party said that the law is greater." That's all for today. If you enjoy our content, please give us a thumbs up, subscribe, leave a comment, or share it with a friend. We appreciate your support, and we'll see you next time.